Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Ivers?
Yes.
Ms. Karan?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Ms. Woolsey?
Yes.
5 ayes.
Thank you. I need a motion to certify closed session that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting in which this certification applies, and only such public matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, and considered.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Ivers?
Yes.
Ms. Karan?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Ms. Woolsey?
Yes.
Public address. At this time, and at each of our regular scheduled meetings, the school board sets aside 30 minutes for citizens to address the board about issues pertaining to public education in Montgomery County. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes to speak. The screens throughout the room and on the laptop will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when 3 minutes have passed. Since there is no one who has signed up, I'll ask if there's anyone in the audience who cares to speak to the board. Seeing no one, public address is closed. Consent items. If there's anything to be pulled from consent agenda that will be considered consent items approved, then we will consider consent items approved. Anyone want to pull anything? Consent approved. Personnel report. Do I have a motion to adopt the personnel report?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion on the personnel report? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Payment of the bills. Do I have a motion to pay the bills?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion about the bills? All those in favor of paying the bills?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, at this time, we have the superintendent's report, recommendations, and announcements. Mr. Staton.
Thank you, Mr. Ivers. Tonight, we have several items to present to you for information and do not require action at this time. The first item on the agenda is an update to the board on the Bring Your Own Device initiative. Harvey Goodwin and Julie Kraft will present tonight.
Good enough? Thank you. Bring your own device. It's this time that we will update you on our efforts the past 2 years. It's actually been 2 years since we started Bring Your Own Device. I'll spare you. I won't be reading the slides. What is Bring Your Own Device? It's where children bring their personal devices that are mobile, which could be anything from a flip phone to a smartphone to a tablet to a laptop. So any of those are considered, you bring them in, you have the mobility, you can connect to a Wi-Fi network, and you use them for your personal learning. You all started this initiative in the summer of 2012, where we brought you, and Jason, who's in the audience, brought you the updated code of conduct, which allowed the door to be opened. Prior to that point, it was not permissible for a student to have a mobile device in the classroom. So we updated the code of conduct and the technology acceptable use policy at that time, which permitted students to bring their devices to school as well at, pretty much at the discretion of the teacher, whether they would use them in the classroom or not. At that point, Julie passed out the, what we published for teachers, distributed throughout the school system. Jason and I presented it all staff about how to do a BYOD. And then the TRT and staff and Jason met with teachers and principals and clarified, and we've been working ever since then to implement it and support it throughout the school system. One sort of point, the wireless network in a BYOD to handle security, a guest network, which means that when you walk in, you have a guest network here and that you connect to. And it's treated like, you're treated like adults. In the school system, we have to comply with the Child Internet Protection Act. So the open network treats every student as if they are a student. So every student is filtered through the internet just like they would be with their regular ID when they're on the guest network. Julie?
Okay, so ITRTs have been working with teachers over the last year and helping them integrate students' personal devices into the classrooms. So here's a little video about a few things that are going on in our division right now.
Want students engaged? Tell them they can use their personal devices in school, and you've got them excited about learning. Elementary school students are using their own devices to look at QR codes to read about authors. As students rotate through learning stations, they engage with the online content at their own pace with their own devices. Their wow expressions and comments as they discover an author are priceless. Middle school students are using their devices to take pictures of their notes to take home and study. Students take advantage of the opportunity to record their teacher during a lesson for future review. This is also beneficial to parents at home trying to help their student. AirServer allows students to use their devices to share their creations with the class. Need results quickly to check for student understanding after a lesson? Let them pull out their devices and quickly answer a few questions. High school students respond to Poll Everywhere questions, and the teacher immediately sees a graph of responses. Using Edmodo on their own devices promotes student engagement as they can relate to the lesson in a Facebook-like platform that makes sense to them and is used in their daily lives. These are just a few examples to show what's happening in our schools. BYOD, it's here.
Okay, so as you can see, the kids are really loving this stuff. You put a device in a kid's hand and they're engaged almost instantly. So I have a little poll for you, since Poll Everywhere is fun. Let's see if I can get to it. And I noticed that almost everybody in the room has a device that they brought with them. So if you would go to the website pollev.com, pollev.com, and you can see it right here. And I want to know what everybody thinks. That's everybody. Come on, get your devices on. So I want to know, do you think electronic devices can improve instruction? Once you start, you type in 871139 if you think yes. You type in 871140 if you think no. And again, that's pollev.com. More than one person.
Poll S,
Ev, E-V, P-O-L-L.
S or F?
E-V as in Victor.
E as in Edward.
You write yes or no.
You type in 871139 for yes and 871140 for no.
Come on.
Get it? So P-O-L-L-E-V, edwardvictor.com.
V,
You got it, .com.
V.com?
Just
Just .com. That's it?
Come on, Jennifer, no voting twice.
This is good stuff. So this is the same thing that, the teachers are experiencing in their classrooms with their kids. The first time it might be a little confusing, but
Somebody said no. Who said it?
somebody has to say no.
My device says Safari can't open this page because the server cannot be found.
It's probably my fault because I probably didn't help you well enough. Here, I'll get you to the website. I'm sorry.
Where's your phone? Use your phone.
Is this any relationship to my ability to do this?
No.
You sure?
Okay, so you get it. It's a lot of fun. And overall, folks think it's a good idea to use instructional devices.
Hit it. The keyboard will come up.
All right, back to our PowerPoint. We got to get back to the serious stuff.
I wonder why. There you go.
I put that number in that
Put
sheet?
that, what? Well, you took
Before we get
away.
too serious,
Okay.
that nice little video there, we invited some of the teachers and TRTs who took part in filming that or whose classes it was. So I'd just take a second to recognize any of them who could take advantage of the stand.
QR code lady.
So now, some of the challenges, okay? And you just experienced some of the challenges. It is engaging. It is how kids learn now. This is the environment that they operate with information. But BYOD is not perfect. Equity is one of the first things that stands out. I can be sitting next to Julie with my smartphone. What does she have? She has a laptop. It's a glaring inequity. Or, what if I don't have anything? A Nielsen poll conducted in October of this year found that kids between ages 13 and 17, 70% had access to a smartphone or better. 70%. When we did for our pilot for the e-backpack, when we surveyed Eastmont, the figure was more like 37%. I'm sure Blacksburg is pretty close to the national average. Eastmont is somewhere less. Auburn and Christiansburg are probably in the middle. So equity is a big issue, and you can see the difference in devices will make a difference in how they operate. We found in our pilot recently that, for example, some of our textbooks are written in Flash. Well, Apple doesn't do Flash. So you have difficulties with what device, what's the age of the device. It can be a kind of a difficult, challenging situation for teachers in the classroom, especially when you're trying to do a whole class integration lesson where every kid has a device. You have to turn and you have to work on strategies to share or get devices from the library, from the laptop cart in order to flesh out the classroom so you have enough. So it's not a one-to-one solution, but it is a good thing. And kids, you just experienced it. It's engaging. It's how we learned now. The generations behind us all are used to having this. This is how they interact. So it's a good thing, and it's taking off.
All right. So, although there are challenges with BYOD, we are learning about how our MCPS children respond to lessons that incorporate the use of mobile devices. As you can see, kids are familiar with using electronic devices in their daily lives. So they access and process information. So when teachers plan to incorporate devices, students learn and interact naturally. Do you have any questions?
Any questions?
So we think they're good. Devices, they're good.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
First question is, Mr. Jones sent an email indicating that, let me find it here. He's specifically interested in security aspects and how we'll ensure the protection of divisional data related to employee and student information. And he also indicated that at Moog, where he works, increased security threats, they've decided not to offer BYOD?
The first slide where I talked about internet protection with SIPA, that's one of the security measures we have to take. We're obliged to do that by the law. The second aspect is the open network is blocked from the private network. You can't get there from here. So that's great, that's secure, but that's where security gets in the way sometimes of learning. So that means that I cannot get to my H drive, my home directory, in order to get files. It's a security aspect. So we have to put a firewall between the private network where our data resides and the open network where kids on BYOD come. It's understandable why, like Mr. Jones's company, which has government contracts where they have to draw tighter security. We try to keep things as secure as possible and yet make it usable. So it's always a toss-up. It's a draw between usability and security. And we hope we have a good solution.
What were the schools that were showing up in those slides? Just quickly.
Auburn Middle School, Falling Branch Elementary School, and Eastern Montgomery High School.
Very good, very good. You're correct in what you're saying, because obviously I was not keeping up with you, and the first thing that I should have done and did was went to my neighbor. That's engagement. And my neighbor could help me, and that's exactly what we're looking at. I think this is a great step forward in moving into the 21st century, which we have to do. And I think through engagement, through bring your own devices, we will slowly move there. I'd like to move faster, but last question is, we know that some of our schools, all the kids aren't going to have devices. Is there a solution to that problem? Maybe you mentioned it, I didn't hear it.
Basically, there's two simple solutions. BYOD can be a whole classroom integrated lesson, and you saw several of those cases. In one of them, in the elementary, you saw kids sharing devices. So sharing is one way, is working with. The other is you go to the library. Many of our schools, or some of our schools, have devices. They may be Kindle carts, they may be Apple carts, or Windows carts, or laptops. So the teacher has to plan. BYOD takes a little bit more planning if you're going to do a total integrated lesson. It is work. So that's how you have to do it. Otherwise, though, the mistake is there's two levels. Special ed student sitting there with a laptop using it to accommodate their learning disability, that's BYOD too. Fact checking by one kid in the back of the class as a teacher, that's BYOD. So it's many levels. It's not just a full classroom all doing technology together. That's a good thing, and it happens. It's also a lot of little pockets of devices going on and augmenting learning.
The two things that I saw, I don't know if you had produced them or where I saw them, but I saw, number one, teacher preparation compared to what they're doing now, compared to BYOD is quite extensive. Preparation is key. But the outcome is engagement, and learning is also here compared to where it would be here if you didn't use the BYOD process. So I think it's a trade-off that's worthwhile. Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one other question, just going back to the security aspect of things. Obviously, we're monitoring security. Do we have evidence of attacks at all within our security internet?
We really haven't had you know, kids are kids.
Right.
And we do, you know, we have small things. There's nothing terribly malicious. It's more, usually when we see something, it's cheating. It's trying to cheat and take advantage of those. The greatest security threat that we handle is really from the outside trying to come in through the
Right.
firewall.
So nothing, not much
So-
internal.
So
Okay.
BYOD hasn't proved that much of a security
Okay.
channel.
Question, is this the update that we were receiving for the pilot program?
No.
Okay.
No. Thank you. I'm sorry,
So I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say, you mentioned that one of them was an elementary school. Is that, like, are they gonna be on the B?
Oh, absolutely.
They all are today.
Absolutely. It's happening at elementary schools. Some of our leading teachers, most creative teachers are at the elementary.
Well, I just think you have lesser students with their own devices in elementary school. You know, middle school and high school, maybe not so much. But in elementary school, I mean, you know, if I was a parent of a first grade, I might think before I set my Kindle Fire with them. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's kind of
Sure.
where I'm coming from that. And I wouldn't have my first grader a phone or smartphone. Some do, but I wouldn't. So, you know, that's kind of why I'm questioning there.
Well, certainly that's one of the challenges of planning, especially with an elementary child, is they have the device today, tomorrow they didn't bring it.
Right.
So the teachers have to be very cognizant of their environment.
Have
So we
we
don't-
had incidents where devices have been stolen in our schools? Kind of, do we-
To my knowledge.
Not, and it would be treated as a student code of conduct issue.
So we don't, it's across the board, all the way down to kindergarten can bring their
Absolutely,
own device?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, with the
That's
discretion of the
interesting.
teacher.
It's discretion. Yeah,
okay,
it's up to the teacher.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey and Julie. The second item, high school scheduling update, is for information and your review. In ongoing efforts to evaluate high school schedules in light of the current Blacksburg High School concerns and in an effort to provide equitable opportunities for all students while also providing some unity to high school schedules across the county, the 4 high schools are working together to develop an appropriate division scheduling model. An update on the process will be provided by Jennifer Weaver.
Good evening. Last time we met, I told you that we had a meeting scheduled with the high school principals, and I would bring you back the results of how that went. So I'm happy to share with you this evening. We met to talk about the possibility of having a consistent high school schedule across all 4 schools. There were some things that we discussed that would be essential if that was possible to even consider. So I wanted to show you some of the things that we were looking at. We started with the basis that whatever schedule that we talked about, we wanted students to have an opportunity to have 8 credits. We wanted to keep credit recovery options. So for example, if a student failed English 9 first semester, would there be an opportunity for them to recover that credit without having to wait until the next school year? We wanted to continue to accommodate our 2 credit courses, especially AP courses and CTE courses. We wanted to standardize a lunch period across the division. We wanted to stay within our current staffing allocations and continue to allow teachers to have the same amount of planning and duty that they currently have. And we wanted to see if there were opportunities to improve things with having division consistency. Things like if students transfer from one school to another, that currently is a huge issue. If students are going from, well, either way, it creates problems for students losing credit. We share at all of our schools a tremendous amount of staff, and so we wanted to make that an easier process if possible. And we also wanted to equalize opportunities whenever possible, especially our CTE offerings. There are certainly a variety of courses that are offered at one school and not another. So those were all things that we kept in mind. There are many schedules that would have accommodated all those considerations that we just talked about. So we tried to look at best practice, review our own experience of high-performing schools, and look at what are some good scheduling models to consider. So I wanted to show you this tool just so you could see, we went through a pretty in-depth process at looking at each schedule to try and see how does it fit with our needs. Montgomery County has its own set of issues, each school has its own set of concerns and needs.
So we wanted to make sure that whatever schedules we looked at did that. We wanted to make sure that it fit with current initiatives. We've spent, as you all know, a tremendous amount of resources trying to incorporate interventions at the high school level. So we wanted to make sure that we still had the time and availability in whatever schedule we picked to make those work. We wanted to look at how it fit with our resources, things like staffing. We wanted to look at evidence. What are high-performing schools do? What does research tell us are good models to look at for high school scheduling? Readiness was important. What do we have in place that will make this easy or difficult? Attitudes of our community, the belief of our staff, the support that we have available either at the building level or at central office. And then same thing with capacity. We wanted to see what do we have in place that will make the schedule work or not. So we went through a variety of different schedules and weighed them all against this criteria. What we came up with was a hybrid schedule model. So a hybrid schedule basically just means it's a combination of a lot of different types of classes. It gives you flexibility. So in our particular case, what we're looking at is offering some year-long courses, because there are certainly some courses that we feel like fit better in a year-long model for 45 minutes all year long. Something like band is a pretty typical offering during a 45-minute all year long period. And then we also felt like having 90-minute periods fit really well with some classes. And so schools will have the options of doing year-long classes, semester courses, which means that you take it 90 minutes every day for a semester and then take a different course second semester, or alternating year-long classes. So during that block period, you might take one class on an A day, another class on a B day. So it really is building in the most amount of flexibility that we can have. So administrators can look at what do they have in their school, what needs do they have, because they are different school to school. And how can we accommodate that within a schedule? So I didn't give you a bell schedule because it really does depend on a lot of details. We'll be looking at transportation, at school nutrition, how can we share staff, courses that we're sharing. CTE is a big part of that because kids are moving from place to place. So those 45 minutes will end up at different times during the day, depending on what works best, giving all those things. So if it turns out that we determine that our students who are traveling, for example, to Christiansburg High School to take some CTE classes, it works best to have a 45-minute period at the beginning of the day to give them that travel time, then that's where we'll put the 45 minutes. So right now, there's still lots of flexibility, school to school and as a division, in terms of which periods will be 45 minutes and which periods will be those block classes. So then the principals had an opportunity to take the schedule back to their faculties, and we asked them all kinds of things. So faculty gave us, for every class that they teach, their scheduling preferences. I think that for band, I think I would prefer to have it in a year-long class, 45 minutes all year long. I think I teach AP Environmental Science. I'd like to have that in a 90-minute period all year long. So teachers got to go class by class and give their principals feedback in terms of how they felt their classes should be scheduled, so that when principals are working on the master schedule, they can incorporate that feedback as much as possible. We also asked them what kind of professional development needs they would have, what kind of curriculum resource support they would need, and we got great feedback. I was actually a little bit surprised how many things showed up across the board that almost every teacher mentioned, and they were things that certainly we were expecting. Professional development was a big piece of that. They're going to need support in updating their pacing guides. We had a lot of interest in either having people visit from schools that have been implementing the types of classes that they're interested in, or going to visit schools that have been doing it for a long time and have success. That showed up on lots of feedback that we received. So we got tremendous amount of faculty. I think the faculty took giving us feedback very seriously, so we got lots of usable information, and we did get that individually from every single teacher, which I think will be very useful for the principals as they plan. And then there are other things that we'll need to work on logistically, like as I mentioned, things like making sure that transportation is the most effective, that we're sharing our staff effectively, those types of things. And then a big task before us will be communicating the new information. We've already done faculty, but to parents and students, that'll be our next large step. So that's where we are, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, and the principals are in the audience if you have any particular questions for them.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a few. The first one is, will this require a decision upon our part to implement this countywide?
No.
Okay, that's my first question. So with that, at what point are we going to decide to do this? And I'm assuming that we want to implement this for the upcoming school year.
Correct?
At what point do we need to make sure that all our ducks are in a row to make sure that this is able to happen by the beginning of school year next year?
We're ready to move. As you saw from the next steps, we'll start working on those tomorrow. We've already worked on a variety of them. We started working on transportation. Like I said, we've already gotten feedback from teachers, so we'll continue with the next steps immediately. The next large thing that we'll want to work on is how we're going to communicate to parents and students.
Right. So really, unless we have to make major cuts in the budget when we get to that point in a couple of months, then, I mean, I'm just, with that being in the forefront of our minds, you know, we may not be able to make a final decision upon that until we see, yes, we're going to have all the funding that we need for every position next year. So I want to make sure that, you know, in May, when we get this finalized, our budget finalized, is that going to give you enough time to make adjustments, if needed, in whatever schedule is implemented?
We won't need to make adjustments in the schedule based on, we stayed within our current staffing allocations, so we're not changing staffing allocations. So the
That's what I'm
budget is
saying.
independent.
I'm saying if there are, because of the budget constraints, we do have to change
Well,
the
you're-
staffing positions.
This schedule would be more
It's a catch-
conducive.
It's a catch-22.
Yeah.
We
I
don't
was
know.
going to ask, are you going to be able to save some money with
Yeah,
your changes?
Excuse me, we don't know right now what we're going to get from the state or the feds. We have no idea.
Right.
As we get closer, they've got to continue with this
Right.
regardless.
Right.
When it comes to the push comes to shove, that's when we make adjustments. And we're not there yet, but we'll be there soon.
Right.
And we'd love to be able to keep the staffing we have. That would be wonderful.
Right.
But again, it's a catch-22.
But to answer your question, this schedule won't make it more difficult to
Okay.
adjust to
That's,
staffing.
I guess my
based.
question was, I just want to make sure if we
Right.
have to make staffing changes in May, you get that information.
Sure.
You know, how far we are in the process, then the scheduling can be adjusted or not adjusted, not have to be adjusted
Sure.
if no changes.
Yeah,
are
we
made.
won't have to adjust the
Okay.
schedule. That's primarily at the secondary level. When you make staff reductions, that impacts either class size or program offerings. So.
Any other questions?
At this time, do you know if start times and end times of the day are going to change?
They're not going to change drastically. At the most, they'll change about 10 minutes. For the most part, we're going to be able to take advantage of the times that students are already in the building. And we're not adjusting, we're not starting transportation earlier or having students arrive earlier, any of those kind of things. Yeah.
Any other questions? I received an email indicating that we had our head in the sand, which we get emails every now and then that tell us that. And one of the emails was in reference to this. And I answered the email and told the person that this is not our job. This is the principal's job and it's your job. Is all we're doing is we're monitoring it. And we will continue to monitor it. And you will continue to do your job. And I think it's wonderful that you're able to do this really with less. I mean, it would be nice if we could give you the staffing that you needed so that this thing could run very smoothly. But as time goes on, I see that how you folks are really doing so much more with so much less. And I think that's wonderful, and you ought to be applauded for that. And thank you.
You're welcome. I'm very proud, I'll just say I'm very proud of the principals for working together. You know, it's not easy to meet the needs of every school from a division perspective. You know, that's a hard thing to do, to try to have some consistency, but also meet the needs of your individual school. That takes a real challenge, and they've worked very hard together. So I appreciate that, and I know that it'll end up resulting in some really good things for our kids.
Any other points, comments? Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Jennifer, and also thank you, principals, high school principals, for your show of solidarity by your presence here.
I'm
Thanks.
sorry, one other comment. I think it was Ms. Kieran that brought this up. Trends and issues in high school scheduling out of,
From Dr. Reddick,
yes. Have you gone through that?
I have.
Fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. I've actually attended training a variety. He's
Okay,
the
just wanna make sure you're
scheduling
aware of that.
expert.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and I don't, I did have another question, I'm sorry, the hexagon.
Yes.
Is this the hexagon that these people brought up, or did you make adjustments to it to fit our needs? Or is this what they've done?
The hexagon model is a decision-making model,
Right?
so we used it as it was research-based.
Okay,
Yeah.
but you didn't add
We
or
didn't.
subtract to it, you just used it. Okay, good. It's a nice model.
It was very useful for us. I think it, like I said, we were really looking at, since there were so many schedules that could have met our needs, how could we go through and try to be objective about evaluating them?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, the third item is the budget planning update. In just a few minutes, Katie Miano will come forward and update the board. As you know, yesterday evening, the Board of Supervisors met in special session to receive a presentation on the proposed county budget from the County Administrator, Craig Meadows, and his team. In the proposed budget, the county offers no change in funding from this year's current funding levels in the operating budget. This means that there are no increases. The budget reflects $42.08 million in funding for the budget, for the operating budget. The county continued to, the $1.4 million to be held in reserves for future capital projects. However, the county did not budget for the building repair and roof maintenance plan, the 21st century classroom improvements, and the replacement of the aging bus fleet. Also, there is no accommodation for salary increases. Ultimately, there is more work to be done to cut from the February 4th, 2014 approved schools budget. Last month, we informed you that the mandate for part-time employees with the Affordable Care Act was changed to 2015. So that's where we are. And at this point, I want to ask Katie to come forward.
Good evening. As Dr. Staten mentioned, I'm just going to go over a few things very briefly. The first item he mentioned briefly is the House and Senate amendments that have been put forth. The House budget is a slight increase over what we had originally seen from the governor, the outgoing governor. It's $15,000, almost $16,000. The Senate budget adjustments are about $291,000 increase over what we saw from the previous governor's budget. These have already done the crossover, so the other ones are looking at them now as they're in the other side. The county administrator's budget proposal includes level funding for the school operating budget. And then just to highlight some key meetings that are coming up for the Board of Supervisors and for the school board. You see the list there, but the couple I'd like to point out, March 17th at 6 p.m., the Board of Supervisors meeting, they'll establish their advertised budget and their tax rate. And right now, their county administrator's proposed budget had no tax increase.
Excuse me for a minute. I don't have that.
It didn't get put into the board docs. I'm
So
sorry about that.
can you get it to us?
Yes, sir.
Through emails?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
March 25th at 7 p.m., there's a community meeting at Christiansburg High School. On April 3rd, there's a public hearing on the advertised budget and tax rate. And then April 8th, there's a second community meeting at Margaret Beeks Elementary School. And then you see there's a couple additional meetings there. And then our final approved school board budget is May 6th.
Do you have the new numbers of our budget, given what you think these two amendments will have, or and also getting nothing new from the county?
I mean, it gives you slightly more revenue.
But you're thinking
but you
$5 million, basically, right? That we, around five.
Additional revenue?
No, that we would have to remove from the proposed budget that we
We'll be
presented.
short around 6.
Yeah, I didn't bring my sheet up. What is it? Is it? Yeah, what is it? 5 point?
A little over 5, or I don't know.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't bring my sheet up, I'm sorry.
Well,
5.4.
let me help.
5.4.
John had mentioned several items. He mentioned buses, and I didn't get them all. Buses, teachers' raises, and what else was there in there?
The cap-
The capital, all the capital items, capital project items, the roofing repair,
Okay.
the busing, and the 21st century items. The 21st century classrooms was also in there.
Do you have any idea what that comes to?
Yeah, that's 575.
That's, what was it?
Those
500?
three, just those 3 items is $575,000.
What 3 items?
The 21st century classrooms,
Okay,
the 2 school buses,
yeah.
and the capital maintenance and repairs.
That's
Those-
$500,000?
575,000,
And
yes,
the
sir.
teachers' raises?
Was $2.3 million.
So we're not even at 3 million.
Right, yes.
I'm sorry.
But just my sheet that I'm working from, to balance it with county revenue, it was close to $6 million. So
Yes.
basically, it's $6 million around that we will be cutting from our budget.
Yes, we're short
If
6
it's
million.
really
Yes.
what is passed that they proposed last night.
And I have some further comments on that issue, as soon as she's finished.
Yeah.
Okay.
No other questions?
So you heard me talk just a second ago about part-time employees and the Affordable Health Care Act being delayed to 2015. As a result of that, we can remove the $1.2 million, which will leave us a shortfall of $3.9 million. And recognizing the shortfall, the administrative staff have already gotten together and begun taking a look at possible cuts. Now, we will schedule a workshop at a later date to discuss with the board what those possible recommendations will be.
Comments?
So the number at this point is 3.9 is what we're estimating as our shortfall?
That is correct. And my final comment would be that we have also been monitoring what's coming out of the state legislature. We're not encouraged at all. So the best thing we can do is hope for the best, but at this point, doesn't look good.
It seems like last night they had a number that they thought was the number we're going to get from the state, and it was even a little less than what we had projected.
Right, exactly.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're asking us to come up with a budget that resembles our 2008 budget. If we're working on a budget right now that resembles 2009, they're asking us to come up with one that resembles 2008. Or am I wrong?
I'm sorry, Mr. Ivers. I don't know those numbers off the top of my
Okay.
head. I can definitely look those up for you and get that information, but I would say it's probably around 2009 still.
I've got it home. You don't need to do that. And right now, I know that the budget today resembles what we had back in 2009.
I believe that is correct, yes. But, yeah.
Any comments? I see a lot of people out there biting their tongues, but we'll let that go. Thank you.
Okay, our next item, item 4, is the 2014-2015 calendar adjustments. In response to feedback from the middle school survey and the release of the 2014 Virginia Tech football schedule, we have made adjustments to the elementary early release on the 2014-15 school calendars. The school calendar and the 12-month employee calendar have been revised, and the dates have been changed from early release days for elementary students to early release days for all students. The revised calendars are attached for your review.
What will that do to the block scheduling schools, though?
The early releases, they just adjust the schedule on a block schedule just like they do with the current schedules. There would be no effect, really.
Okay.
There isn't any additional days on here. They've been moved from elementary only to all.
Right, I just know there's a daggone whole lot of early releases in the elementary education level. So when you've got a lot of block scheduling and they're trying to get information in as much as possible, you've got 2 early releases a month, you lose a lot of time.
It's not 2 early releases a month, it's just some of them are being changed, not all of them.
I thought he said all of them.
No.
Okay. So just 4.
And
So
what
this-
what kind of feedback? I hear middle school teachers and staff are happy about this, but what about high school, knowing that it's all?
The high school teachers are actually very excited because what'll happen during that time is the joint meetings that we shared with you that are happening very late in the afternoon because they're division-wide, and so we have to start really late because we've got to give time for all schools to travel. So those meetings, that's why we picked 4. We've got 4 joint meetings, so instead of those happening late in the afternoon and evening the way they are now, those will happen during the early release time. So they're very appreciative to not have to stay so late because they're starting already very early in the day.
Any other comments? When I first came down, I found this fascinating, 6, 7 years ago when I got here, that we had to work our schedule around Virginia Tech football. But then again, it dawned on me that when I went to church in Northern Virginia up in Fairfax County, some of the preachers up there had to work their schedule around the Redskins schedule. So you had to make sure that service ended so that people could get in their cars and get to the Redskin game. Otherwise, you'd be preaching and they'd be walking out.
We don't have church meetings on Thursday
Well,
nights or
no.
Saturday afternoons here, so.
Football rules,
It
just
did not
football
used to be
rules.
that way.
Pardon me?
I will tell you, it did not used to be that way. This is a new thing.
It's, what, has it been that way since you've been on the board?
No, it has not.
Thank you.
So do we need to approve this
No.
at all? Oh, nothing? Okay.
It's information right now.
Okay.
The next item, item 5, is the 2013-2014 instructional hours. And this is provided to you in response to the weather and what's been going on. And the one, I believe Ms. Woosley asked a question some time ago about adjusting for the weather in terms of adding more days at the end. So, as of March 4, 2014, the Montgomery County Schools had completed 583 hours of instruction. This total includes weather-related closures and delays, holidays, and early dismissals. To meet the 990 required instructional hours for the 2013-14 school year, we will need to complete 407 hours of instruction. We have 435 hours remaining in the approved instructional calendar. This gives Montgomery County Public Schools 28 hours over the mandated 990 hours for a total of 1,018 instructional hours completed in the school year 2013-14. This additional time provides Montgomery County Public Schools with 4.7 additional days, or 4 days, that could be missed before we had to take a look at altering schedules or the calendar to make up for the missed instructional hours. So that should answer that question. Any other questions?
Any questions? I had a parent who, well, I have several parents who were really concerned about, I want to say, the month of January and how many days are missed. I'm going to make this plea for those parents. Do we have our calendar committee all set up? is our calendar committee all set?
Get an update next meeting, I think.
You're-
Yes, sir.
And would you take new members if people wanted to be on that?
Yes, sir.
And, okay, and I can let them know that they can be on it for next year.
Yes, sir. And that
Okay.
would be that the next year's calendar committee will be approving the 16-17
Right.
calendar.
Maybe always two,
Okay.
Okay? So that's the only information I would share with those individuals.
And the only information I want to give you are these parents who were talking to me said, please take a close look at January.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, the final item is the calendar activities, and that is submitted for your review. And that will conclude the superintendent's report for this evening.
Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.
Is there any unfinished business?
Did you want to bring up those items that Mr. Jones emailed earlier, or do you want to do that during new business?
That's-
Either way?
That'll be new business.
Okay.
Matters of new business, and one of the items that he brought up was retreat. Please take a look at your calendars, and I would say that probably by the next meeting, we should be looking at a time when we can get together for a retreat. We're looking at the month of July, hopefully. That hasn't worked out every time, but if we start now, possibly we can all get together for that retreat. And the retreat is usually a full day or 2 half-days, something along that line. We're talking Friday, Saturday, or all-day Saturday, something along that line. So please bring your calendars updated at the next meeting, and maybe we can discuss that. Did you have anything else?
Yeah, I'm going to add something, but he also brought up about doing some meetings in the different strands.
That's right.
So I don't know if we want to mention that or if we want to put that as an item for us to discuss in the future.
I think we ought to bring it up as a discussion, so can we put that on the agenda? But in the meantime, we can have a little discussion right here.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, it gets us connected to those communities. I'm definitely all for it.
Well, I was also talking to Mr. Staton before the meeting about these 2 meetings that the Board of Supervisors are having at 2 of our schools, and I know it would be really beneficial, I think, if the two groups were together for those meetings, because I know the questions are sometimes overlapped,
Yeah.
and I don't know if there was any communication that happened asking us to be part of that, or last night was the first I knew they were having those meetings, but it's just having them together would be better than having a whole nother meeting where we're in those strands. Those are already planned, I know, and maybe we have to think beyond those, but I think it's a great idea.
I do have one concern about it, cost. I have no idea what it would cost to move this program to a high school, middle school, elementary school. And before I even consider looking at it, I would want to know the costs.
Yeah, and the logistics of setting everything up. Mhm.
Right, setting everything up, the manpower, costs and every phase. So if somehow that could be added into the discussion.
When was the last time we've done this? Has it been a while?
Not since I've been on the board.
Okay.
We tried it a few times. We just didn't have good turnout. I mean, we really didn't, other than a public hearing. That's my opinion, that we had, because I know we had one in Eastern Montgomery. We've had them at Price's Fork, I believe. We've did different things. But what I would like to see is maybe more of a meet and greet kind of thing. Maybe not so, as a formal meeting, because I think sometimes people might come out more for a meet and greet than they would. And I think the Board of Supervisors did that in a few of the strands.
And that's what they're doing with these other
Okay,
That's what
gotcha.
they're
So,
doing,
for me, my vote would be more toward a meet and greet type situation than a formal meeting in the strands. Because I think sometimes when you start switching around, well, somebody thought it was here and they were going to come, but they couldn't go. They didn't realize it was going to be over there. So that's just my thoughts on it.
We might want to get some input too from the principals. I mean, my assumption is if we were going to do it in those 4 areas, the high schools would be a logical place to have that. So maybe get some feedback from the high school principals, those of you who are there.
Which principal do you think is going to say no?
It'll be interesting to see.
Did Danny say no? That's a good point. Any other comments on this?
I do have one other item of new business that I just want maybe some help and clarification. By next board meeting, I know we'll have our facilities report. It was brought to my attention today that there is some movement to tear down some structures at the old Shawsville area where the middle school is right now, the old field that's there. I know there's plans for the building to be torn down, but there was some concern by some of the citizens that the field was going to be affected, the bleachers, some different things that are associated with the field there that apparently get used for events, the 4th of July event that happens in Shawsville, all that kind of thing. I just would like, apparently some decisions were made a while back that are now starting to be implemented that the citizens are just now finding out about. And I just want an update on where we stand with all that, what's going to be done. Do we have some alternatives for the way those facilities get used for those certain events? So,
All right, can we do,
We can do that in a
Thank you.
board update,
thank you.
okay?
thank you.
Any other new business? Upcoming school board meetings, and you can see those on your iPad. The March 18th meeting looks like it's a full meeting with the capital projects, facilities update, seniors of the month, youth art, music, youth art month and music, and so on. And then April is budget update, special education annual plan. Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.